the weather. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the March 14th Planning Board meeting. I'd like to start the meeting off with the pledge, please. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with justice. Okay, we have 2 meeting minutes to approve. One is January 24th, 2023. The other is February 14th, 2023. I was absent for which one? I was absent for the 14th, I believe. So the first one, any comments, questions for Lisa from the board?
Nope.
Okay, I'll take a motion to
Move.
minutes.
Move.
Ernie moves.
Second.
Got seconds. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried 5-0. And then the 14th of February, I was absent. Anybody have any comments for
Nope.
Lisa? Okay,
I'll move.
Al moves.
Second.
Ernie seconds. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried 3-0 with 1 abstention. And just to note that Joe Limbeck's not here this evening. Probably out flying around the world somewhere. We've received some correspondence, one from Dave Anderson regarding the sign variance at the ZBA for the Valentine Plaza sign, and the second one from Ed Morrell regarding the 1086 Strong Road subdivision. Boards and committee updates. Dave's here. Mr. Town Board Representative.
I just wanted to update you and let you know that last night we did have a public hearing on changing some town code on R1, R2, and R3 for accessory structures, and just tried to beef that up a little bit to help you and help our codes department. That went through without any fanfare, and then we approved it as a resolution, so you'll be getting those updated codes to see those to help us out with easements and things like that for the accessory structures. The other thing is I wanted to comment on Mr. Anderson's documents that he sent to all of us, ZBA, Planning Board, Town Board. We conferred with him last night during the public section for about 27 minutes or so, give or take. Basically we told him that, that it's not our jurisdiction, it's not what we handle, it's not what we do as a town board. And I told him what we do is we notify law enforcement that people are breaking the law by taking a left-hand turn coming out of there when it says right only. And Wes was nice enough to get up and point out to talk about what we foiled for accidents up there. And there have been, even though he showed us a video of numerous cars taking left-hand turns at different times of the day, coming out of there, some going straight across the High Street extension, turning around, coming back, things of that nature. There have been no accidents there since 2016, and I know that you guys have worked with Rinaldi several times in working on that parking lot. So I just wanted to share that information, and I told him to talk to you. So,
Didn't he do that once before?
Yeah, we've seen at least one other video
Yeah,
of
and I
cars.
told, the only thing I suggested to him is I said, and then one other woman spoke, and I said, it does say right turn only, and maybe it needs that big red big red sign, no left turns. But I talked to 3 of my friends in law enforcement, and I also told them that we spend monies on 20 hours a week for additional road patrol. And so Jack will notify Ontario County and the state police that this might not be a bad place to sit in an unmarked car in the north face parking lot, and maybe get a twofer once in a while as they're coming out making a left-hand turn. So I just wanted to share that with you guys.
Thanks, Dave. Just from my perspective, Fred's gone over and above, I think, on many of the things that he's addressed that intersection. I've been to the Beer Project and watched, sitting there out the window, watching cars constantly taking left turns. I don't know what more could do besides close that thing. So, pretty sure the fire department wouldn't be too happy about that, but, yeah, thanks, Dave. Kim?
So your next meeting will be March 14th. No,
That'd be today,
I'm sorry,
28th. Add
the
14.
28th. This says March 14th, so that's why I was confused. I knew it wasn't the 14th. Anyways, you have one public hearing for a Paranello, they're calling it a spool, which is a spa and a pool, at 7950 Oak Brook Circle. It is in the LDD district. The applicant's requesting to install a 10-foot by 20-foot spa pool and a deck expansion with some new stairs. So that's the only thing that's on your agenda unless there's carryovers from tonight.
Okay, thank you, Kim. All right, we have several short items here, and get going on those first. There's an extension of time request for Stonebrook subdivision. The applicant's requesting the first 90-day extension of time for preliminary subdivision approval, and it's the first one, so do you have any comments, questions about it?
No questions.
Okay. We do have a resolution for it. I don't know if, Les, you didn't have anything to deal with on that one, so, okay. All right. I got the glasses on. So whereas in a letter dated January 10th, 2023, Jeff Smith of Woodstone Custom Homes requested a 90-day extension of time for the application titled Stonebrook Preliminary Subdivision. Therefore, be it resolved that the Town of Victor Planning Board grants the first 90-day extension of time for Stonebrook Preliminary Subdivision. We hear a motion for approval on this. Ernie moves.
Second.
At seconds, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, carried 4-0. Second one is a public hearing. O'Shea Pole Barn. Applicant is requesting approval to construct a 32-foot by 48-foot by 12-foot pole barn on 7.5 acres. Good evening.
Hello, I'm Trevor O'Shea. You about summed it up there. I realized at my first zoning board meeting that this is not an interrogation of me, but I actually present something. So I'm just gonna go with a little background here. It's gonna be, we would like to have a metal pole barn, 32 by 48 by 12, like you said. We just need extra space for storage right now, and we're gonna go as big as we possibly can because it's a long-term investment. So I guess that's why I'm here. It's over 1,000 square feet. So we have 7.5 acres. It's surrounded by woods, and there's kind of a drop, a steep drop off through the woods towards the road. So it's not really expected to be visible from the road or from our neighbors. So if I had to estimate, I don't know, it looks like we probably have around 2.5 to 3 acres of grassy land, and on the bottom left-hand portion of the yard, that's where we want to put it. And we want to back it up. Like, once it hits the woods, it is basically a, okay.
You can point.
Yeah, well, you got it there. Right around there. There was a good topographic map at the zoning board meeting. I don't know if you guys have that available, but it kind of shows how it drops off from there. So it's going to be tucked in that corner. Yeah, it's going to be red with a black roof. So I think that's about it.
Anyone have any questions for the applicant? Ernie?
I have one.
Go ahead. I want to lean a little
Trust-
closer to
trust
them.
sign here. What's that for?
VR?
Yeah, trust plaque.
Yeah, I think it's a building code item, and I can't remember what it stands for. What it's shown on trusses that are manufactured, I think, to a certain level of quality.
Is that going to be inside the building?
Can you repeat that?
Is that going to be inside the building?
What? I'm sorry.
This, the VR plaque?
VR.
Or isn't it going to be there at all?
I'm not, what page are you on?
It's sheet 3 of 11 on the plans. Set,
Yeah, 3 of 11.
drawing A 1.01.
I only ask because I've never seen that before.
It says right here.
Okay.
And I've seen a lot of pole barns come through here.
It needs to be, it says it needs to be installed on the outside of the addition at all exterior door locations, so it's a building code thing. So if it needs to be displayed, code enforcement would check to see that, make sure that it's there,
Okay?
if that answers that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Anything else, Ernie?
No, that's it.
Scott?
No, I was just looking it up on the internet.
I'm just reading it myself on the plans here. It's a trust, they call the trust identification sign,
Right.
and it appears to be showing referencing the quality of the structural construction and perhaps,
Correct. Yeah, that's what I got. This,
yeah. I don't know why they need to post it.
I think it's like, the equivalent to like an ISO designation or something like that, but according to what I see here, use this reflective sign to identify structures in New York with truss construction, meets New York State 19 NYCRR Part 1264 requirements. That's what,
Okay,
so,
I've never seen that before, and my barn with trusses does not have that. So,
Joe and I have been on this board for
it's the first time I've ever seen
decades,
that.
probably.
Unless maybe you know where the origin of that is, or maybe not. Yeah, okay. Well, it's a sign. Sounds like you're all set with it, so. Anything else?
Yep.
Scott?
I just had a question. Is the barn going to have any plumbing fixtures or anything like that, or is it just kind of dry storage use with electricity?
Yeah, dry storage with electricity.
Okay.
Yeah.
And exterior lighting, is any exterior lighting proposed?
Not, I don't think so. We don't have any plans for it. I don't see why we would need that.
I don't see it on here, so, okay.
Yeah.
I figure there might be a light next to a door, I mean, entry door or something like that. I don't know if
Right.
that's something you use a
Deer
flashlight.
might set it
for
off
too.
if it's automatic.
Yeah,
And they will.
I don't have any more
okay.
questions or comments.
Al?
No questions?
Okay, and I don't either. It is a public hearing. If there's anyone interested in asking a question about this, or the applicant or the board? Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
I'll move.
Al moves.
Second.
Ernie seconds. All in favor?
Aye.
Public hearing's closed. And we do have a resolution prepared. Resolutions, I didn't read my announcements here, but resolutions are available at the back on the table. So, for the O'Shea Pole Barn, 145 Baker Road, whereas the planning board made the following findings of fact. Site plan application was received on February 3rd, 2023 from Trevor O'Shea, the applicant, by the Secretary of the Planning Board for a site plan entitled O'Shea Pole Barn Project for the property located at 145 Baker Road, Victor, New York. And there are 7 other whereases. Now therefore be resolved, the application of Trevor O'Shea, site plan entitled O'Shea Pole Barn, drawn by McCormick Engineering, dated January 4th, 2023, received by the Planning Board February 3rd, 2023. Planning Board application 5 SP 2023 be approved with the following conditions. Conditions to be addressed prior to chairman's signature. Item 1 is standard. Number 2, that any exterior lighting be compliant to code and approved by the code enforcement officer. Number 3, that the comments letter dated March 6th, 2023 from LaBelle Associates be addressed. Wes, I'm apologizing now. I forgot to give you an opportunity. Any comments?
Yeah, I'll just make a couple of comments here. Based on our March 6, 2023 letter, we were wondering about the driveway, if there'd be any proposed driveway associated with the barn and grading. Was there any type of grading that would be required for a driveway?
We're not going to attach a driveway to it.
Okay.
Our driveway's gravel right now, so,
Okay.
yeah.
So no excavation or bringing of gravel over to the barn as a base to,
No,
vehicles or equipment in?
no.
Okay,
So just to note, the level of disturbance that they've indicated on their EAF, and this is a type 2 action, but was basically the footprint of the barn itself and nothing further.
so what's the, I know there's a threshold of the level of disturbance that they shouldn't exceed without a more rigorous review, I guess?
Well, for classification of seeker, it would, right, there's one level of disturbance for non-residential projects of 10 acres.
Yeah,
And then if there are some thresholds or there are some indicators that would reduce that to 2.5 acres under certain circumstances, but we're clearly nowhere near
way,
that.
yeah.
And we're clearly under an acre of disturbance, so.
Okay. Anything else?
Well, we touched on lighting, the septic system. We were just kind of curious where the septic system was located on the plan. I assume it would be away from where the barn is.
Yeah, I could show you if you want to.
Susie, can you
map.
go to the survey map, please? There. Or would you
It's-
rather the other one?
Oh, that's fine.
That's okay.
So here's the house. It's like right here. That's why we had to, that's part of the reason why we wanted to put it in front of the house up there.
Okay, makes sense.
Yeah.
All right, thanks. That's it.
Okay. Thank you, Wes. So we have 2 ongoing conditions. One, that site plan complies with the Town of Victor design and construction standards for land development, including Section 4. 2, that a building permit be obtained for the garage prior to installation, and be it further resolved, the planning board secretary distribute the planning board's approval letter. Do I hear a motion for approval of that resolution?
I'll move it.
Scott moves,
Second?
Ernie seconds. All in favor?
Aye.
4-0. You're all set.
Thank you.
Welcome. Next item, Fairways Phase 3 re-subdivision of lots 301, 302, and 315. On Championship Drive, applicant is requesting approval to re-subdivide lots 301, 302, and 315 into 14 individual townhome units. Good evening.
Good evening, and thanks for coming out and braving these conditions. My name is James Ritzenthaler with Passero Associates. So, as you said, pretty much covered it all. We are here before you seeking approval for the re-subdivision of lots. Sorry, I commandeered your chair, I didn't bring a stand. Lots 301, 302, and 315. 301 is proposed to be subdivided into 4 different lots, with 302 and 315 subdivided into 5 different lots, following the splits in the townhomes there. As you said, this is Phase 3. We've been here before, following all of the same design and style as the previous lots that we've subdivided. We're proposing no changes from our previous plans, and just seeking re-subdivision on those, into those 14 different lots. So,
Okay,
thank you.
Al, questions?
No questions.
Pat?
I just want to verify my understanding, which I believe is that this was originally proposed to be subdivided this way, and this map, this final plat is just based kind of on an as-built then? Is that correct?
Yeah, my understanding is that it's wanted that the foundations go in and then the subdivision, and then we come back for the re-subdivision of building lots, just so that there's no difference in what we originally file and then where the building actually gets placed.
Okay, thank you.
Ernie?
Yeah, this is very common that you see in construction like this, so I don't see any problem with it.
Yep. Only question I had is how many more of these do you guys have?
To my knowledge, it's just these two right here.
Okay, and then your construction will be completed, it sounds like.
My understanding is yes.
Yeah, okay. Very good. It's not a public hearing, right? Oh, okay. Wes, any comments?
Just a very minor comment. The one comment that we have is just, we were looking for the applicant to put the applicable zoning district on the subdivision plat sheet. That's it.
Okay. Would you like that on, would you like us to resubmit, or?
No, just when you
move
submit
forward?
your Mylar,
Yeah.
just, you can put it on the Mylar and,
You said the applicable zoning?
correct.
Okay. I do have Mylars here that I was told to give to you, if possible. If you want to take a sec to look at them, I'm not completely sure if it's on there or not.
Okay.
But, yeah.
Yeah, if you want to leave it here with the town,
Okay.
with Kim's office, we can take a look at it.
All right, perfect, thank you.
Okay. Hearing nothing else, I have a resolution for this application. Fairways Phase 3, Championship Drive, application 01FS 2023, whereas the planning board made the following findings of fact. There are 3 of them. Now therefore be resolved, the final subdivision application of Fairways Townhomes LLC, final subdivision entitled lots 301, 302, and 315 of the Fairways Phase 3, drawn by Passero Associates, drawing number 2020 3040.0004, dated February 2023, received by the Planning Board Secretary February 7th, 2023. Planning Board application 01FS 2023 be approved with the following conditions. Conditions that must be met prior to chairman signing the final subdivision plan. Number 1 is standard. Number 2 is standard. Number 3, section 4, standard approval conditions for all subdivisions, major and minor. Design and construction standards be met. Number 4, comments from Labella Associates dated March 13th, 2023 be addressed. Number 5, subdivision which was approved on May 22nd, 2007 be modified, and the application of the Fairways Townhouses LLC dated June 7th, 2022 for a modification of the approved subdivision granted, provided that the developer comply with all conditions stated in the prior final subdivision approval dated May 22nd, 2007, and further complies with the requirements herein. Conditions that are ongoing, standard conditions that must be adhered to. Item 1 is standard, item 2 is standard, item 3, that in the event that created lot lines do not coincide with the constructed buildings, an administrative lot line adjustment is possible, providing all regulations are complied with. And be it further resolved that the planning board secretary distribute the planning board's approval letter. On this resolution, do I hear a motion?
I'll move.
Scott moves.
No, it was me.
Oh, Ernie moves, sorry.
But I'll second.
Scott seconds. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, carried 4-0. Okay.
Great, thank you.
Welcome.
And where would you like me to? Okay, thank you.
So, 1086 Strong Road subdivision. Owner A6 Property Holding LLC, application 4PS 2021. Applicant is requesting approval to subdivide 34.42 acre parcel into 11 single-family lots, including an existing house and garage. This will be the second step in a 3-step process for a major subdivision. Sketch plan was acknowledged complete June 8th, 2021. And this evening, I guess, Wes, I'll let you take it from here. Looking at seeker.
Yeah, thank you. So a month ago, we started to look at Part 2 of the EAF, right? And we did a little more evaluation. Actually, if you want to just take one of these, go ahead and pass it down. We need to go over a couple of issues that we didn't fully review at the last meeting. Have extras? Okay. So before any action can be taken on the subdivision, the preliminary subdivision application, we've got to finish seeker, right? We've got to go through Part 2 and Part 3 of the EAF. And tonight, what we've drafted and what's in front of you is a revision of what we had at the last meeting. You know, we had a question about, let's see, I think it was impact on groundwater. We did a little more evaluation with the groundwater, and I'd like to go through that with you. And then also community character. There's been a lot of correspondence that has come in from the public regarding community character. And I believe everybody on the board has had the opportunity to review multiple times the information that's come in the sentiments regarding community character. Bear with me a second. Maybe for the benefit of the folks that might be viewing online, I could even bring up Part 2 of the EAF, this draft, Part 2 of the EAF. Let me scroll to it. Susie, could you switch? Yeah. Yep. And if there's anything that you want to revisit that we talked about last time on these 18 questions, let's take the time to take a second look at some of these. So impact on land. What we've drafted here, and based on some of the feedback that we've had from the last meeting, we've got a new draft of Part 2 of the EAF here, dated March 14th. Is there an impact on land? Yes, right? But we indicated that each of these subcategories, we identified no or small impacts would occur in that regard. And there's a reasoned elaboration, or there's some justification or analysis in the Part 3 EAF attachment, which we don't necessarily need to go over in detail tonight, because it's unchanged from the last meeting on question 1. Question 2, impact on geological resources. What we did change here is on sub-question C, right? We identified that there was there's locally recognized varied topography. We indicated here in this updated draft that there is a moderate to large impact that would occur. But the reasoned elaboration, or the information that we provided in the narrative, kind of elaborates on that. So we've indicated here, per the New York State Unique Geologic Landforms Project, a joint venture between New York State DEC and the New York State Museum, Office of the State Geologist, the topography of the project site is not identified as a unique or unusual landform, such as cliffs, dunes, waterfalls, erratic rocks, gorges, glacial features, or caves. The only two portions of the town recognized in this instance are the Drumlin Field at Gillis Road, located on the east side of the town, and the Kettle Hole Lakes at Fishers Road and Benson Road, located on the northwestern edge of town. However, the project site is characterized by rolling topography that is locally important to the character of the neighborhood and the town of Victor. The pasture landscape provides scenic value to the existing community. Although the project site is privately owned, the site is readily visible from public vantage points, or the right-of-way. The proposed project would alter the rolling landscape, but not to a degree that would eliminate the existing character. The mass grading of the site would alter but continue to provide varied topography on the site. The site will be physically altered, and new structures would affect the character of the setting. Okay, impacts on surface water. We said, yes, there is an impact to surface water, and we've evaluated an updated engineer's report, SWIP information, and I talked with our stormwater management person today, Mary Stebline, and she felt that in large part, we can work with and accept what has been provided with regard to stormwater. There may be some small refinements or additional details that we need to go over, maybe during the final subdivision application, if it gets to that point. But we've indicated here no or small impact with regard to surface water. And the narrative has not changed since the last meeting.
Is that the same thing as flooding, impact on surface water?
Correct. Well, yeah, flooding is one of the subcategories here.
Some of the comments we've received address the concern over current flooding that currently occurs or flooding that will be aggravated by the subdivision. I'm trying to figure out how best to address that question. Is it how would this make it worse, I guess?
Well, I do recall seeing a public comment indicating that surface water may be, maybe draining onto the road, but I think our evaluation, Labella's evaluation, indicates that the project isn't going to result in any new water, any new surface water drainage onto the road, right? We're not discharging onto the road. There's a stormwater management practice on the site. The site infiltrates fairly well, so we don't see that this project is going to impose any new any flooding concerns on the roadway.
So drainage or runoff will that be directed more away from the road with the impervious surfaces proposed, driveways and the houses? Or is it not changing the flow pattern? And right along the road, is there, I assume it's an open drainage proposed, from across the fronts of all these lots?
Yeah. So there, the configuration and the surface water drainage patterns may change slightly from what they are based on today's conditions, but not to a degree that would cause a significant adverse impact, not to a degree that would seem to cause concern with flooding of the roadway.
Okay.
So,
All right, thanks, Wes.
yep. Let's see. Actually, I did change, let's read one paragraph in here on subsection 3, impact on surface water. I do recall changing a portion of this. One of the paragraphs we've said in here, the site contains New York State DEC classified stream, Class C, identified as 846-107 from it should say DEC EAF Web Mapper and DEC Environmental Resource Mapper. The proposed project is not likely to impact the stream, as the proposed subdivision includes a conservation easement within which the stream is located. No mass grading would occur in the conservation easement at the southwest of the project parcel. The proposed project includes design practices that will minimize soil erosion or otherwise minimize and avoid stormwater discharge that may lead to siltation or degradation of receiving water bodies. Moreover, the proposed project is not anticipated to affect the water quality of any water bodies within or downstream of the site of the proposed action. Next question, number 4, impact on groundwater. So we had kind of left a few of these blank at the last meeting, right? Impacts on groundwater. And Labella did provide a letter. I can see if I can bring that up. Planning. Dated March 6, 2023. And as part of this letter, we've indicated that we had a professional geologist analyze the project site, as well as the water well completion reports for lots 7 and 11, soil characteristics and mapping. So this internal Labella memorandum, which is attached to our March 6th letter and is available at the community development, or at the planning and building office, if anybody's interested in looking at it. In summary, there's every expectation to believe that the test wells are representative of the aquifer conditions at the site, and that wells drilled on the other lots of the 1086 Strong Road subdivision will encounter similar suitable water supply conditions. We've also concluded that there is more than sufficient groundwater recharge across the site to sustain the demand of the 10 new residences of the subdivision, estimated to be 4,000 gallons per day. Additional site recharge replenishing the confined aquifer under the Type A conservation easement portion of the property likely adds an additional 3,000 gallons per day. The potential to adversely impact water levels in existing off-site wells is a function of the availability of recharge, and since Labella's analysis indicates that there is adequate recharge to supply the needs of the 10 new lots in the subdivision, potential adverse impacts on the water levels in adjacent off-site water supply wells are not expected or are believed to be minimal at most. So with this evaluation, we've indicated that while yes, there will be an impact to groundwater, each of these subcategories, and we can go through them. A, the proposed action may require new water supply wells or create additional demand on supplies from existing water supply wells. We've indicated no or small impact. B, water supply demand from the proposed action may exceed safe and sustainable withdrawal capacity rate of the local supply or aquifer. We've indicated no or small impact. C, the proposed action may allow or result in residential uses in areas without water and sewer services. So yes, that is going to occur. However, the impact we've indicated is no or small impact. D, the proposed action may include or require wastewater discharge to groundwater. We've indicated no or small impact here. And I know that has also been a concern that's been expressed by the public about whether on-site septic systems would lead to potential contamination of the groundwater supply. So the information that we've taken a look at, and which Department of Health will also review, and they will be, Department of Health would need to approve these septic systems. They've designed, the design is, it meets the Department of Health requirements, so we expect that no significant adverse impacts to the groundwater supply would occur. E, the proposed action may result in the construction of water supply wells in locations where groundwater is or is suspected to be contaminated, no or small impact. F, the proposed action may require the bulk storage of petroleum or chemical products over the groundwater or an aquifer, no or small impact. And G, the proposed action may involve the commercial application of pesticides within 100 feet of potable drinking water or irrigation sources. Since this is not necessarily commercial application of pesticides, we've indicated no or small impact.
Wes, is there a minimum distance between wells?
Septic?
Yeah, there is a minimum distance between wells and septic, which I believe is 150 feet. In some cases on this plan, the applicant has provided 200 feet of separation distance. There is a current, one of the lots does show currently, and I think the applicant is working to resolve this. It shows a separation distance, I think about 70 feet between a well and a septic on an adjoining lot. But that would be moved so as to provide that minimum separation distance.
On Lot 7 and Lot 9, Doug, the two wells are very close together, appear to be close together. Is that something, Wes, that you would say is something that we should be concerned about? These two wells have got to be at most 70 feet, 75 feet away from each other, if you're looking at this as 150 for scale.
So I didn't get any indication from our geologist indicating that that was a concern, but we'd be happy to take a second look at that to be sure. What were the lots? Lot 9 and,
9 and 7. So the well on Lot 9 seems to be the most flexible in terms of where you could relocate it. So if you moved it further south towards Lot 10, it's got the whole backyard to move it, and it's not within a conservation easement or anything else like that. So I would think, Doug, you could spread that, and you'll get way more than you're 200 feet away from leach fields, and at the same time, kind of split the difference between the two sets of wells on 7 and 10. So I would, that as a comment in the future if it doesn't move. I would see making that comment again if it doesn't move on your next plans. So that's the only thing I had, Wes. Thank
Okay.
you.
okay. So number 5, so this is also a flooding issue, right? Impact on flooding. Proposed action may result in development on lands subject to flooding. So we know that the property is not in a floodplain, and it's not on land that would be susceptible to flooding. So this is why we've indicated that, no, there is no impact here.
So susceptible to flooding in terms of a river overflowing a bank kind of flooding, or runoff flooding from a creek getting too high up between its banks or overflowing its banks.
Yes,
That's the kind of flooding we're talking about, not
correct,
across the road, ditch flooding or stuff like that.
correct,
Okay.
correct.
It's more a major regional or area
Yep.
type flooding
Yep.
from a large rain event.
Okay.
That's just trying to clarify in my mind that that's what we're talking about. Okay.
Okay, impacts on air, that remains unchanged. Number 6, there's no impacts on air. Number 7, impacts on plants and animals, that remains unchanged from the last meeting, if I recall correctly. We didn't identify any moderate or large impacts there. Impact on agricultural resources, that remains unchanged. Impacts on aesthetic resources, that remains unchanged. Historic and archaeological resources, that remains unchanged. Open space and recreation, that remains unchanged from the last meeting. Number 12 remains unchanged. Impact on critical environmental areas. Impact on transportation, number 13, that remains unchanged. Impact on energy, that remains unchanged. Noise, odor, and light, that remains unchanged. Number 16, impact on human health. That remains unchanged.
Sorry, Wes, just going back to those. When you say remains unchanged, impact on energy, yes, but no or minor effect. Impacts on noise, odor, or light, yes, but no or small impact. And human health, no impact. Correct? When you say,
Correct.
I just want to make sure for the
Yep.
public's understanding that
Correct.
it remained unchanged, and our previous determination is no or yes,
Right.
depending on what I just said. Okay,
Okay.
so 17, moving on.
Yeah, consistency with community plans, number 17. That remains unchanged in comparison to the last meeting. And then I'd like to take a look at consistency with community character, question number 18. And just so you know, is because this is a draft document that we're going through here, and this narrative is also in draft format. And if you don't agree with it, this is the time to talk, because really the way this has been structured to date here now is this would seem to lead towards a seeker negative declaration, okay? So before we get into number 18, I'd just like to articulate that if you're looking for design changes or changes in density, the way we've articulated this, it would be very difficult to request the applicant to change the density if you were to issue a negative declaration on the proposal that is in front of you now, right? Really, it seems to me like you would need to find that there's a potential for a significant adverse impact with regard to maybe community character if the density is really a concern for you. So let's go through consistency with community character, number 18. Let's go through the narrative.
Before that, Wes, anybody have any other comments on 1 through 17? That we've gone through to date this evening. What, Ernie? Any comments, questions? No, Al?
No.
Okay. All right, so this is the focus now, is 18.
Yeah, and this is a straw document. It doesn't necessarily mean that this is everybody's perspective. So let's take a look. The concept level future land use potential density changes map on page 816 of the town's comprehensive plan identifies the area of the town within which the project is located as an area where the town could consider increasing residential density from the least dense to a medium density. The proposed density is in compliance with the town's residential overlay zoning district for the property, Residential A overlay zoning district, which allows 0.33 units per acre. This overlay district is the most restrictive district for residential density, as the other overlay zoning districts, B and C, allow for half a unit per acre and 1 unit per acre respectively. Numerous residents have provided written correspondence indicating that the proposed density, while permitted within the Residential A overlay zoning district, is not in character with the existing neighborhood across the street, Taylor Road, to the north. The existing homes in the area have been built over a number of years. However, the density of the existing homes across the street is not significantly different than what is being proposed, despite the proposed configuration having somewhat less lot frontage than some of the existing lots on the north side of Taylor Road. In fact, one property on the north side of Taylor Road is a flag lot with approximately 30 feet of frontage at the right-of-way. The design plans have been modified from the initial submission to provide a varied setback from Taylor Road. While the initial submission included depictions of home sites that would have been a consistent setback away from the roadway, home sites for lots 4, 5, and 6 have increased setbacks away from Taylor Road, which provides consistency and continuity of the existing residential development on the north side of Taylor Road. The visual character of the neighborhood will be changed, and the proposal reflects a design that is generally consistent with the design, placement, and intensity of use of the, I should say, existing neighborhood. So with that draft narrative, what I've indicated here is consistency with community character. Yes, it is somewhat inconsistent with the existing community character. Subparagraph A, the proposed action may replace or eliminate existing facilities, structures, or areas of historic importance to the community. We've said no or small impact. The proposed action may create a demand for additional community services. Example, schools, police, and fire. I've said no or small impact. The proposed action may displace affordable or low-income housing in an area where there is a shortage of such housing. I said no or small impact. D, the proposed action may interfere with the use or enjoyment of officially recognized or designated public resources. No or small impact. E, the proposed action is inconsistent with the predominant architectural scale and character. I've indicated no or small impact. And F, the action or proposed action is inconsistent with the character of the existing natural landscape. I've indicated no or small impact. So with that, are there any questions, or do we need to talk about any of these items, or do we want to talk about existing community character or comparing the proposal with?
I agree with the items checked in number 18. I think that's correct based on my evaluation, what I see in front of me and what I've heard over the last year or so. I think it's correct. I think knowing that your geologist person took a look at the drawdown tests and confirmed that the private well supply is going to be acceptable as it is for the neighbors surrounding this property. I think that's a positive that we didn't have an answer to last time we met. I wasn't sure. It looks like the separation distances can be met. Maybe one needs to be tweaked or something like that. I don't see that as a huge thing to overcome. I think that what you've done, Wes, is, in my world, I would consider it normal for a residential subdivision of this size and scale to receive this report card, if you will, on the criteria.
Okay.
Ernie?
Is this all in compliance with existing state and local requirements?
I believe it is, right? If we're talking about local requirements with regard to zoning, and the town's development review process, yes, it appears to be in compliance with all local requirements. As far as state requirements, it also appears to be in compliance. I think Labella and the town would likely defer to the Department of Health on final approval of the Realty subdivision, as well as the septic systems.
The reason I ask is what's brought to my mind is the Galassi subdivision, which was several years ago, which we spent several years on. And then ended up with a 3-2 denial, which was then appealed to Supreme Court. And it got sent back to us for reconsideration because there was no basis for what we did. And I want to be sure we're in compliance if we approve this. And I know we're not at that stage yet, but that's my concern.
Okay.
I think with that concern, when you're doing seeker in terms of sequence on an application, you kind of have to step through the application exactly as we've done it and come to this juncture. What I've seen in these particular types of applications is that the health department and the phase 2 stormwater compliance and all those permits and approvals that you have to get really are the quality control, are the mitigating circumstances associated with it. If we didn't have a health department, if we didn't have a phase 2 stormwater plan or something like that, then that could be kind of ambiguous at this point. But I see those as agencies that ensure quality control and provide for the mitigation of these environmental impacts so that they work. And I think we have a town here that serves as a very good example on many residential subdivisions this size or larger that have seen this type of application before. I don't see, quite honestly, my opinion is I don't see anything here that would represent anything but acceptance of what's been done in terms of the work that you've calibrated here, and I think it's definitely a candidate for a negative declaration.
Al?
Yeah, just a couple comments, because there has been an abundance of community feedback on this project for months, if not years. And I know there's a frustration from the community that the town planning board is not hearing or ignoring the feedback, and I think it's just the opposite, that we've taken all that feedback, and as I reflect back on the feedback, I think the three major themes that we consistently heard in a very repetitive fashion were community character, concerns about traffic and safety, and the groundwater and/or flooding. And I think that going through the seeker process in a very diligent way, fact-based, and, applying the criteria, quantitative criteria, I agree with the assessment that Wes has provided a draft.
I think also on the subject of traffic and traffic safety, I heard that loud and clear when the public came here, and I think it is a valid observation, but I don't think it's something that stands in the way of this project being approved. I think that the problem pre-exists the subdivision application.
On that note about regarding traffic and those comments, I agree with you, Scott. The intersection this project offers to do, or has to do nothing about, offers to do nothing about. What can they do? I mean, I think Doug talked about perhaps clearing some of the roadside foliage on I'll call it the southwest quadrant, on where the old house is, out in front, to see if there was a way to make an improvement on perception, if not reality, of sight distance along that side of the road. And I think that's the only place that this project can have an effect on sight distance. But having said that, if he did nothing, the subdivision does not introduce any kind of barriers or problems in terms of sight distance. Yes, the intersection may be dangerous either perceptively or in reality. There's no accident history there. I know the residents have said they're, I don't want to put words in their mouth, but they're very concerned about having to pull out there. They don't like it, and they try to find other ways to deal with it.
Right.
That's kind of a town, how to put this, obligation to at least look at and address, but it's not something the development can do. Improve.
I agree. I think if we got numerous sheriff's reports saying that there were multiple accidents there, say, every week, and that there was some type of linkage to those accidents with this particular site, then I would say, okay, you've got a valid issue there for traffic. But I don't see that here. I just don't see it.
Well, the developer at Mill Estates did do that. He leveled out the hill that was in the
Or they
way.
took away a big
Yeah, big one.
obstruction to the
Willis
traffic.
Hill there? Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's a good example, because we all, I think, saw that. I don't know about anybody else, but when I drove Willis Hill previously, I could feel myself sort of getting like a magnet. It felt like it was pulling me into that hillside.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think that's a really good example of a project where we did work with the developer, the engineers, and they took it upon themselves to take the cue and modify that hillside and cut it back. I don't see the same magnitude of a problem here.
No, but
But I agree
It would
with.
help.
I agree. Well, I think anything would help. Whatever Doug is able to do within his limits of his project, whether it's vegetation trimming or whatever, I think that's reasonable. But I think at worst, if there's anything that this subdivision would be doing, it would be introducing a few more cars to that intersection on a daily basis.
it doesn't affect the traffic on Strong Road. It's
Correct.
going to be what it is.
Right.
No matter what's down Taylor Road.
And talking about projects like that, Valentine Road, they had to move driveways, entrances to the subdivision of private drives,
Yep.
and do some clearing and grading as well, near the barn, I think it was. There was,
Yep.
so we do work with this. We listen to the public. We look at our own engineers' advice, and we employ some of our own common sense and engineering
Yeah, and I think
expertise.
in both cases, there was an opportunity there to improve the situation. And I think you're right, neither project really created that problem. That problem was pre-existing as well.
Make sure you moved up to
I'm
your
sorry.
mics a little bit, so it's on.
So yes, I agree. But I also think if I step back on this one, just 11 lots, maybe 12 if you consider the existing lot, it's just not a project of a size and a scale that has an impact to really go into the last box on the right. Large to moderate. I just don't see those impacts happening from the size and scale.
For the record, it's 10 lots plus the existing home, so
Is it?
11 total.
11 total.
Didn't see Doug jump out of his chair yet, but,
I was close.
yeah. But 10, 11, 12,
Yeah.
your point is made.
Yeah.
And regarding the setting, I think early on, the residents were very concerned about the lot widths and it not being consistent. We commented to the applicant that spread them out, rearrange, and he pulled one house over to Strong Road, or pulled houses back from the road frontage. There's only one house with a front-load garage even proposed, and that's set back quite far. The front-load garages on the other side of the road, existing homes, there's 4, I think, of them at least visible from the road, so I don't see that as an argument, to mention some of the other comments we've heard, and I think that was very minor and only brought up at one meeting, but I
Yeah.
agree with Scott that we have, and Al, that we've listened to the public and taken this stuff into account. It's not just we're listening and not saying anything, we're processing, talk to our engineer, and we've been talking it through like this as well, so.
No, there were comments made from the public to change the design, and the engineer did change some of the layout. He did tweak tweak things this way and tweak things that way. There was a proposal from one of the residents for an internal road. I'm sure that the economics of the project wouldn't really justify that. And we're surrounded by frontage lots, which is exactly what's being proposed here. So I don't see any incompatibility. If we were bringing in, say, a new YMCA or something like that, and we were inserting it into this particular parcel of land, I would say you've got some big community character issues to deal with. Not the same, it's a completely different use. But that's not the case here. This is residential development in a residentially developed section of our town. The items that appear in our comprehensive plan are goals, oftentimes suggestions, but they haven't been codified beyond whatever we find in our zoning and planning regulations. I think it's important to know that just because it appears as a goal doesn't mean that it's something that could detract from an approval of a project. That goal may or may not be achieved, but from what I've seen of this project, the developer and the developer's engineer have been very careful to stay within the legal boundaries of everything that we put out there for them to do.
Anything else from the board? Ernie?
Well, just speaking as someone who was on the comprehensive plan committee, I agree with that comment that Scott just made.
Thank you. Wes, any other thoughts before we move on here?
This has been a great discussion. This is exactly the dialogue that needs to happen, right, prior to any decisions being made. And I did draft a resolution for potential negative declaration, which I would like to hand out here. But I think before I do that, I'd like to comment on something that we had suggested as a thought or a consideration, the developer to look at, and also ultimately you as the planning board, in terms of the designated open space, right? Previously, we've seen the iteration of a conservation easement on the southwest corner, kind of the back lot corner, where basically it's a no-touch conservation easement. Things are to be, left as is. It helps preserve the integrity of the water body that's back there. And then there's been some other kind of sporadic conservation easements, maybe in front of the lots or on a side of a lot in different areas. And one of the things that the town code allows is for, to get to that 50% open space, right? One of those methods is to dedicate land to the town. Another method is to create a conservation easement. And the last is something that says, and some other form and acceptable to the planning board and or town board. So we've had instances on past projects where we've indicated, I think it was Southgate Hills 3, there was a back lot line on some of those lots where initially a conservation easement was proposed, but it was just a sliver of land. And I don't know really, we were kind of questioning how meaningful that conservation easement would have been. And rather than establishing a conservation easement, we had them identify on the plans with some shading and call-outs that the area, the setback, the area between the lot line and the rear lot line setback requirement is designated to be that open space. Right, so one of the suggestions that we made in our most recent letter as an open space alternative is we asked the applicant to calculate the amount of acreage that would be covered by the various setback requirements of the R2 zoning district, like, for example, the front setback and the side setback. And perhaps some or all of these setbacks requirements can be used in lieu of some of the open space B easement, so as to reduce the community concerns related to the non-uniform, non-contiguous open space B easement that would require a larger number of conservation easement markers. We recall that there was a concern over the number, 70-plus conservation easement markers. And the town code seems to allow the planning board to consider some other method beyond a conservation easement. So I don't know that we actually have a graphic to show that, but I think Doug has maybe done some preliminary calculations and has identified that, you know, maybe to avoid the need for that second type of conservation easement, maybe use some setbacks. And Doug, do you want to chime in on that at all? Would that be helpful?
Yeah, Wes, just the only thing I'd add to that, though, is that, again, the applicant has responded to the concerns of the community around the view shed from the street. So part of what precipitated the creation of some of the smaller conservation easements was to preserve shrubs and trees, right, from the road. So I think we don't want to lose sight of that was one of the goals.
Okay.
Yes, thank you. By the way, Wes, that document was very well done, very thorough. For the board, it was a great discussion. There's basically just two things. One is, I'll comment on that in a second. The other thing is, what Al started to say is, I think in your community character thing, you may want to also reference that we've put in berms of a flatter slope, more in drumlin-like, along the roadway, and also planted trees on them as a mitigation effect for community character, in that it both replicates some of the rolling hillside in the back and provides, trees eventually that will be bigger trees. So you may want to just bolster that one section in that regard. But I did like Wes's suggestion a lot. And basically, if you take the 50-foot front setback all the way through here, pertaining to your comments, Al, that does cover all the trees, with the exception of a couple that I can move up into that area. And the reason that I had some of these ones back in these areas was the berm itself, this rolling berm, was going back into that area. But, quite frankly, who's going to touch that anyway? It's in the back of and plus it's on the back, so even if somebody did touch it. So I don't see, I think, thinking about it further and considering Wes's observations, I think it does make a lot of sense just to use that 50-foot front setback area, if you will, that includes all the buffer trees. It includes the forefront of the berms in a conservation easement, as opposed to the jerky little things we had. Again, the main reason I did that was to sort of include some of the back of the berm, but it's really, once it's on the back side of the berm, who cares anyways, right? So I like that idea, and it does give us, in conjunction with this in the back, and then we had one more conservation easement here, where these trees are a buffer, if you will, from Strong Road. So with those three elements, essentially, we do get to the 50% level, and I think that, I like the front setback area easement, if the board is in favor of that. It's simple, straightforward, 50 feet. Anybody could measure it. We'll put pine trees in or something and demark it. So thank you for that suggestion. It's a good one.
From my perspective, conservation easements or easements in general should be marked in as unvaried a way as possible, if you will, straight lines or at least
Yeah.
one marker per lot, per line, not, 2 or 3 or 4, like zigging and zagging all over the place along property lines. So as we go through this, Doug, and I think I've made this comment before, is there a way, if there's a way to make them one flowing line, whether it's,
Yeah.
but across properties so that everybody kind of mows to the same spot, if you will?
Yep. No, I think that's what this accomplishes.
Okay.
Like I said, I was probably a little too concerned about preserving this sort of rolling hill behind the trees, and that's why I had included that in the original. But that's beyond the view shed from Taylor Road, and nobody's going to touch it anyways.
Well, conservation easements also are for continuity for, wildlife and forestation, or however you want to look at it, that the wildlife can actually use it, and it stays more natural
Yeah.
in a contiguous kind of way, not little spot here and there and all over the place.
No, I think it's a great suggestion. The other thing I will point out is, there's septic systems in there over in here. But again, you're not going to disturb that area. and the trees in front of the septic systems would be maintained. So I don't see that as a negative, if you will. And there's driveway crossings and that type of thing. What I did when I did the calculation, I said, well, let's take out driveway crossings and stuff like that and see if we still get the 50%, and we do. So if the board is happy with that, then that, and again, I would like that suggestion used, and I would go forward.
I suspect we'll be getting into that.
Yeah, so this isn't something that needs to be decided, right, tonight, if this moves forward, if
Well,
this
don't we have to
application
hear
moves.
from the Department of Health?
Pardon?
Don't we have to hear from the Department of Health?
I can't submit it until we get preliminary approval, that's the problem.
What?
They're going to want to know what the secret determination was.
Seeker, I have to have seeker and I have to have preliminary
Haven't they looked
approval.
at this already?
Pardon me?
Haven't they looked at this already?
No, they won't review it until you get at least preliminary approval from the town.
All right.
They're aware of of the project and the application. Labella has been in touch with the Department of Health.
And they have looked at it from the sense, I've asked them questions about putting leach lines, for example, 10 foot apart and using the area in between for the expansion area, which we do all the time in Monroe County. They're in favor of that. I've sent them the plans. I've had a lot of discussions, as I know Labella has as well, about separation distances. That has, I won't say it's changed, but it's a little more, it used to be more or less just you need 100 feet and that was it. But there's, between the septic system and the wells, and now there's other circumstances where you have to increase that to either 150 feet, or if you're along the flow path, it would be moved up to 200 feet. So, we've, as far as input from them, Ernie, we've got that on those several issues. They've seen things, but they really can't do their formal review until we get their preliminary approval, and it's all, subject to you folks moving forward. Now, I will say that, I've been, let me see, I've been quite anxious this hasn't moved forward very quickly. And I would love to see if there's a way we can move this forward. I didn't get comments until last Monday from Labella. I wrote a letter, I marked the plans up, I got them over to get changed. But I do need to figure out how we're going to move this forward more quickly. I'd suggest maybe, Wes, I could come to your office and go through the items one by one. My clients are kind of at their wits' ends because it's taking quite a long time, and I am complaining, but I'm not complaining. I think to have a good resolution like this is very important for this project, particularly with the neighbor involvement, and it is very well done, and in my opinion would hold up very well in court or if anything like that were to happen. So, but again, I would like to find a way to move this along.
So I do have a draft resolution here
Thank you.
for seeker, and I'd be happy to answer any questions. Joe, I'll defer to you on whether or not you'd like to read it or otherwise.
I think we're at that point where we can, unless there's any objection. I
No,
have a problem
none from me.
moving forward with this. Okay?
Well, just so long as the public understands that we approve this, it doesn't mean the project is approved.
Yeah, and well, I think Wes has made several statements along the way in terms of the process, that each time we move along here, it doesn't mean you're approving the whole project. It means we're getting to the stage where we can review, like after this, it's reviewing preliminary plans and have that opportunity as well. So I don't know if, Wes, you want to make any other
Not right now.
thing? Okay, so,
We would still have final to go, and we would have input from Health Department then if that was necessary.
yeah, we won't get health department input until this is done, right? So, yes, there's plenty opportunity to address anything that may come up. So with that, hearing no objection, I will read the seeker resolution for 1086 Strong Road subdivision application for PS 21. Whereas, on or about August 25th, 2021, the Secretary of the Town of Victor Planning Board received the preliminary subdivision application from A6 Property Holdings, the applicant, to subdivide the approximately 34.42 acres at 1086 Strong Road into 11 single-family residential lots, including the individual on-site septic systems for each lot, entitled 1086 Strong Road subdivision, the project, located on the south side of Taylor Road and west side of Strong Road, tax map number 26.00-1-13.110. And whereas the Town of Victor Planning Board, the Planning Board, preliminarily classified the project as a Type 1 action under State Environmental Quality Review Act pursuant to SECRA's implementing regulations at the November 9th, 2022 Planning Board meeting, and initiated the lead agency coordination process by transmitting Part 1 of the SECRA Environmental Assessment Form and project information to involved and interested agencies, including the Victor Town Board, New York State Department of Health, and the Monroe County Water Authority. And whereas no involved agencies objected to the Planning Board being lead agency, or 30 days had passed since Part 1 of the EAF was transmitted on to them, therefore, the Planning Board assumed lead agency status by resolution at the December 13th, 2022 Planning Board meeting. And whereas the Town of Victor Planning Board, as lead agency, has carefully reviewed the project, Part 1 of the long environmental assessment form, application materials including but not limited to the subdivision plan set, engineer's report, stormwater pollution prevention plan, well yield test and flow report, and has also carefully reviewed and considered written public comments regarding the proposed project, public comments expressed during the required public hearing for the preliminary subdivision application, consultant and outside agency review comments, including comments from the town historian, Ontario County Planning Board, Code Enforcement Office, Stormwater Management Program Manager, Town Highway Department, Coordinated Fire Service, Town Engineer, Conservation Board, and Environmental Record concerning the project. And whereas the Planning Board has caused the completion of Parts 2 and 3 of the long environmental assessment form, including attachments thereto, and has carefully reviewed and considered the same, and has not identified the potential for at least one significant adverse environmental impact. Now therefore be it resolved that no potential significant adverse environmental impacts were identified with the proposed project using the criteria for determining significance identified in 6 New York's NYCRR Section 617.7C1 and in accordance with 6 NYCRR 617.7C2 and 3, and based upon the hard look analysis and other information presented in the full EAF Parts 1, 2, and 3, the Town of Victor Planning Board hereby determines that the proposed project will not present the potential for a significant adverse environmental impact, and hereby issues a negative declaration. And be it further resolved, a notice of negative declaration shall be filed and/or published to the extent required by the SECRA regulations, and this resolution has been prepared in accordance with Article 8 of the New York Environmental Conservation Act. So after that mouthful, do I hear a motion
I'll
to
move it.
approve? Scott moves.
Second.
Ernie seconds. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried 4-0. I believe that is the balance of the agenda for this evening. Any other comments from the board? Questions? Motions?
I agree with Doug. I think Wes did a very good job ferreting out environmental issue for us.
Thank you.
So there is also a draft resolution for preliminary subdivision approval. If you want to consider that tonight, it's draft format. We may want to edit it as we go through it. It's here if you want to consider it. If not, I don't know why we might want to wait to the next meeting.
I think we should.
You think we should wait?
Yes.
I'd like Doug to be able to submit it to the health department to get any comments from them, and
Right.
I agree, I don't think they'll look at it if they don't have, He doesn't have preliminary to show them. And actually, we're, now that I think about it, we're doing this whole type 1 action based on their list that you have to do for a subdivision, or residential subdivision in Ontario County. Wouldn't have to do this in Monroe County.
Not as many septic systems.
They have their own health department, that's why.
That's true.
Well, hearing concerns from the board, I would suggest we hold off till the next meeting at least. I know, Doug, you want to move this forward?
I'm sorry,
I said, I know you're interested in, as you just said, moving.
I get this down.
You need the preliminary subdivision approval resolution to submit to the health department?
I'm going to submit to them anyway. We'll get it on the stack. They're not supposed to accept it. Hopefully they'll, by the time they get to it.
I won't be able to get any of that on the record, just so you know. You're too far away.
No, I said I will submit to the health department and get on the stack. You're not supposed to, but hopefully by the time you get to having a preliminary approval, if that's what the board does, that there would be a, that we would have that in hand, at least it would will get us on, again, get us on a stack, so to speak, of stuff they have to review. Yeah, I mean, I really would like to see a preliminary approval tonight because this thing has been dragging, but I guess I understand.
It's still final to go, and
Yeah.
plans are in good shape.
Yeah, what I tried to do is, with the comments, is I sent Wes the markups. I'm kind of handcuffed because I have to use somebody else to do my CAD drafting, so they weren't able to respond as quickly. They promised to have them done by this Thursday. And like I said, I'll certainly, with Joe, if those were the only comments, I think Joe's comments are, sorry, Joe. Wes's comments are the only ones left to resolve. I've taken care of everybody else's. So if there is no others, I certainly would put a lot of emphasis on meeting with Wes and getting through those for the next meeting, so perhaps we could do final at the next meeting. But
Wes, what's outstanding, if anything, on his application, his preliminary plan application?
Well, he's got everything in that he needs to have in. We do want to have a plan set, a clean plan set for signature. We want to be able to sign an approved preliminary plan. It doesn't have to be on Mylars because it's not going to be filed at the county, but we want a record of what the planning board approved for preliminary subdivision. If you were to consider this resolution here tonight, one of the conditions is that they satisfy LaBella's comments of March 6th.
Prior to signature on the preliminary?
Prior
plan?
to signature of the preliminary plans. So, we would expect that prior to the final subdivision application being made, that the applicant would provide a set of plans, a preliminary set of plans for signatures that we can sign off on, that addresses all of the conditions that are noted in here. So yeah, there are some things, and there are some things that we need to see cleaned up on the subdivision drawings. I feel that can be done through the conditions of approval. And that we would only provide signature after they've met the conditions.
So does the Department of Health have to see signed preliminary plans,
no,
what I'm hearing?
no, they can't. They can't sign anything until we get a preliminary approval. They can't review it, legally.
Well, what Doug would submit, you'd submit meeting minutes or something to them and proving that you've received that level
Well, if you gave preliminary approval today, then as soon as I get the plans finished on Thursday, I'll send them right out. I don't know if that was the question, Scott.
I think the question that was coming was whether you needed signed plans to take to the health
Oh,
department.
no, I don't need
Sign
that.
preliminaries.
No, just a resolution. would
Just a
be-
resolution.
Okay.
is
Just a
fine.
resolution, yeah.
Right. Well, I guess I'm inclined to agree with Wes that we should be able to take care of this element, given that we've reviewed this subdivision and for the most part, nothing's really going to change with the exception of discussions on locations of, the different wells, well, also the conservation.
Maybe a
easements.
couple of conservation markers.
Yeah.
So Joe, technically, I would agree with Wes's comment and your comment. I would agree with Ernie, though. I would prefer we wait till the next meeting to,
Yeah, next meeting is going to be very short because there's only one item on the agenda,
Okay.
and this would be number 2.
and again, given that there was inclement weather tonight, I just feel as though it'd be in our best interest to defer one more
Yeah.
meeting.
I agree.
Okay. Feeling of the board, Doug? We'll deal with it at the next meeting. Thank you, Wes, for all your help. And,
I guess I might have one more request. The final plan is no different from the preliminary. And could it be considered preliminary and final at the next meeting?
I think we have some things to talk about.
Yeah, I think, I think the planning board needs to be comfortable with, the conservation easement, the open space requirements, right? And
Especially if we're going to be looking at I don't want to say modification, but adoption of a more flexible approach to the conservation easements. I would think
Right,
that,
but to the extent those could be brought forward
yeah.
in our next meeting,
Correct.
we could consider both preliminary and final.
You don't have a final subdivision application.
Oh, well, that's an impediment, isn't it?
Well, I could rectify that tonight.
It's still 5 weeks.
There's still conditions on that approval that need to be.
Yeah. Okay. Looks like you're up next meeting, Doug.
Okay,
All
thank
right.
you.
All right, have a
Thank you all.
safe drive home, everyone. I entertain a motion for adjourn.
I move.
Ernie
Second.
moves. Scott seconds. All in favor?
Aye.
No debate. Have a good evening, everyone.